Arizona Territory, 1870. The stagecoach rattled violently as it crossed the last stretch of desert toward Red Canyon. Inside, Celeste Williams clutched her journal with white knuckles, her other hand gripping the worn leather seat. 23 years old, educated in Boston, and now headed to a dusty frontier outpost, all because she believed in something as simple and profound as education for all. "First time out west, miss?" The grey-bearded man across from her smiled through tobacco-stained teeth. "Is it that obvious?" Celeste adjusted her bonnet, feeling the weight of her chestnut hair threatening to tumble down. "Fancy clothes, scared eyes." He chuckled. "Don't worry. Red Canyon ain't much, but Sheriff Monroe keeps it civilized enough." Celeste looked out at the endless landscape, red rock formations jutting toward the sky like nature's cathedrals, sagebrush scattered across the valley floor, and mountains blue with distance. Nothing like the crowded streets of Boston, nothing like home. "The children," she said, more to herself than her companion. "I'm here for the children." The old man's expression darkened. "Just be careful about which children you mean to teach, miss. Folks here don't take kindly to mixing with the natives." The stagecoach lurched to a stop before she could respond. The driver called out, "Red Canyon! Everybody out!" Stepping down into the dust, Celeste felt the dry heat hit her like an open oven. The main street stretched before her, a collection of wooden buildings baking under the merciless sun. Men in worn clothes eyed her curiously as she straightened her travel dress. "Miss Williams?" A tall man with a silver star pinned to his vest approached. "Sheriff James Monroe, welcome to Red Canyon." His handshake was firm, his blue eyes evaluating her with undisguised skepticism. "Thank you, Sheriff." She mustered her most confident smile. "I'm eager to begin teaching. Follow me, the town council's waiting." As they walked, he added, "Word of warning, we've had Apache trouble lately. Toro's band has been raiding settlements up north." Toro, war chief, means bull in Spanish. Earned the name by charging straight at a cavalry unit when he was barely 16, only one who walked away. The sheriff's voice held a grudging respect. "They say he moves like a ghost through these canyons. Even other Apache fear him." The town hall was little more than a large room with wooden benches. 5 men sat at a table, merchants, ranchers, and the local doctor by the look of them. Their expressions ranged from curiosity to outright hostility. "Gentlemen, Miss Celeste Williams from the Eastern Education Society," Sheriff Monroe announced. A silver-haired man stood. "Marcus Hawkins, Mayor of Red Canyon. We appreciate your enthusiasm, Miss Williams, but we've been discussing whether this is the right time for schooling." Celeste felt her heart sink. "I've traveled over 2,000 miles, Mr. Hawkins." "And we're grateful," another man cut in. "But with the Apache situation, precisely why education matters now more than ever," Celeste interrupted, surprising herself with her boldness. "Children need structure and knowledge, especially in uncertain times." The men exchanged glances. "The schoolhouse isn't ready," Hawkins argued. "I can teach anywhere with walls and a roof." She stood straighter. "I didn't come all this way to turn back at the first obstacle." After a moment, Sheriff Monroe nodded. "The old Miller place might work. Needs cleaning, but it's sound." "Very well," Hawkins conceded reluctantly. "You have 1 month to prove this venture worthwhile." The schoolhouse was a single-room cabin at the edge of town, dusty and abandoned. Celeste spent 3 days scrubbing floors, patching holes, and arranging benches borrowed from the church. By the 4th day, she stood outside ringing a brass bell, her heart pounding with anticipation. 12 children arrived that first morning, ages 6 to 13. Settlers' children in homespun clothes, their faces a mixture of suspicion and curiosity. "Good morning," Celeste smiled. "I'm Miss Williams, and I'll be your teacher." A freckle-faced boy in the back raised his hand. "Pa says you're here to make us soft for when the Apache come." Several children giggled nervously. Celeste kept her smile steady. "Education makes us stronger, not softer. Knowledge is power. Now, who can tell me what this letter is?" She held up a chalk slate with a large A. By midday, the tension had eased. The children were eager to learn despite their initial wariness. Celeste felt a flutter of hope as she watched them practice letters in the dirt outside during their lunch break. She was so engrossed that she didn't notice the shadow that passed along the edge of the trees beyond the schoolyard. Didn't see the dark eyes watching her from the cover of juniper. didn't know that someone, something, was measuring her movements, learning her routine. Didn't know that Toro had already found her. The warning came 3 weeks later, just as Celeste was beginning to feel settled. The classroom now boasted proper slates, books donated by the church, and colorful maps she'd drawn herself. 20 children attended regularly, their initial resistance melting into genuine interest. Sheriff Monroe burst through the door during arithmetic lessons, his face grim. "Class dismissed," he announced. "Children, go straight home, now." When they'd left, he turned to Celeste. "There's been an Apache attack at the Williams Ranch, 10 miles north. 3 dead." Celeste pressed a hand to her mouth. "Oh no." "Toro's band. They're moving closer." The sheriff's eyes hardened. "We're calling a town meeting. Everyone's to gather at the saloon in 1 hour." The saloon was packed, the air thick with fear and whiskey. Celeste stood near the back, uncomfortably aware of being one of only a handful of women present. Mayor Hawkins stood on a chair. "The territorial governor has finally answered our pleas. Cavalry's being sent from Fort Bowie." Cheers erupted. "About time we drove those savages out for good," someone shouted. "My brother-in-law at Fort Grant says the government's talking about a reservation system," another man added. "Round 'em all up." Celeste felt a chill despite the room's heat. The hatred in these voices disturbed her. "What about the peaceful tribes?" she asked, instantly regretting drawing attention to herself. The room fell silent. All eyes turned to her. "There ain't no peaceful Apache, miss," a rancher spat. "Not since Toro united the bands." "The only good Indian," someone began. "That's enough," Sheriff Monroe cut in. "Miss Williams is new to our ways. She'll learn." He turned to her, his expression softening slightly. "Go back to your schoolhouse, Miss Williams. Leave Indian matters to those who understand them." Humiliated, Celeste pushed her way outside, gulping the fresh air. The sun was setting, painting the canyon walls crimson. Without thinking, she headed not toward her small room behind the general store, but toward the schoolhouse at the edge of town. She needed solitude, needed to collect her thoughts. The path led past scattered buildings, then through a stretch of scrubby trees. In the fading light, shadows seemed to move with a life of their own. Celeste quickened her pace, suddenly aware of how vulnerable she was. A twig snapped behind her. She whirled around. Nothing but gathering darkness. "Hello?" Her voice sounded small against the vast silence. Another sound, the soft shuffle of moccasins on dirt. Celeste broke into a run, her heart hammering. The schoolhouse was just ahead, its dark silhouette a promise of safety. She fumbled with the key, hands trembling. Something moved in her peripheral vision, a shadow separating from shadows. She turned, a scream building in her throat. A man stood before her, tall, bronze-skinned, with obsidian eyes that reflected the last crimson light of day. His black hair hung in 2 braids adorned with feathers and bone. Across his bare chest, painted in red ochre, was the symbol of a bull. Toro. Celeste's scream died in her throat. She backed away, fumbling behind her for the door handle. His eyes fixed on hers, intense and unreadable. Not a word passed his lips, but his gaze held her captive more effectively than any bonds. Terror surged through her. She turned to flee, but his hand shot out, gripping her arm. Not painfully, but with irresistible strength. Celeste trembled, certain her life was about to end. Images flashed through her mind. The stories of Apache torture, of settlers found mutilated, of women taken. But Toro did nothing. He simply pulled her away from the door, his movements urgent but not violent. His head turned sharply toward the tree line, his body tensing like a predator sensing danger. In the next instant, the world exploded. Gunfire erupted from the direction of town. Men's voices shouted. Through the trees, Celeste glimpsed torches approaching. "Apache! The teacher's in danger!" Toro's grip tightened. Without a word, he pulled her into the darkness behind the schoolhouse, away from the approaching mob. Celeste tried to resist, but his strength was overwhelming. "Help!" she cried, but her voice was lost in the chaos. Toro moved like water in darkness, pulling her deeper into the woods, away from the lights of Red Canyon. His hand covered her mouth, silencing her cries. Panic surged through her veins as he dragged her farther from everything familiar. The sounds of pursuit faded behind them. Only when they reached a small clearing did he release her, pushing her roughly behind a boulder. "Stay," he commanded in heavily accented English, "or die." They were his first words to her, and they froze Celeste to the spot. Toro melted back into the shadows, leaving her alone. Minutes later, shots rang out, closer than before. Voices called her name. Through a gap in the rocks, she saw Sheriff Monroe and several men with rifles moving through the trees below. "Miss Williams, can you hear me?" She opened her mouth to call back, when a hand clamped over it again. Toro had returned, materializing like a spirit beside her. "They shoot first," he whispered against her ear. "Ask questions of corpse." More gunfire erupted, and Celeste understood. The men were shooting at shadows, assuming any Apache was an enemy. If Toro had been seen, he would have been killed instantly. "Why," she began when he removed his hand. "Quiet." His voice was low, melodic, despite its harshness. "Death comes tonight, not for you." Conflicting emotions warred within her. Fear, confusion, the wild certainty that this man could have killed her already, if that had been his intention. Why had he pulled her away from the schoolhouse? Was he saving her or taking her prisoner? They remained hidden until the search party moved on, their torches distant fireflies in the darkness. Only then did Toro stand, pulling Celeste to her feet. "Come," he said simply. "Where?" His eyes, glittering in the moonlight, held hers. "Safe place." "Then you go back." Celeste hesitated. Everything she'd been told about the Apache warned her to run, to scream, to fight. But something in Toro's steady gaze made her hesitate. They were going to attack the town, weren't they? Your people. The realization dawned on her. "You took me away from the schoolhouse before the attack began." Toro's expression revealed nothing, but his silence was confirmation enough. "You saved me," she whispered. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then, "White woman teacher, children trust. Maybe not all whites bring death." He turned away. "Now come, or stay for wolves." With the barest hesitation, Celeste followed him into the night. 3 days later, Celeste sat in Sheriff Monroe's office, a blanket around her shoulders, a cup of coffee cooling in her hands. She'd been found that morning, walking back toward town along the main road, exhausted but unharmed. "Tell me again," Monroe pressed, his eyes narrowed with suspicion. "You escaped on your own?" Celeste nodded, the lie bitter on her tongue. "He dragged me into the hills. When we reached their camp, I managed to slip away while they argued among themselves." The truth was far different. Toro had kept her in a small cave overnight, brought her water and dried meat, and at dawn had led her to a ridge overlooking the desert. "Your town," he'd said, pointing. 4 hours walking. Safe now." "Why?" she'd asked. "Why help me?" His dark eyes had studied her face. "Apache sea heart. Your heart teaches all children, even those with dark skin." A ghost of a smile had touched his lips. "Maybe you teach Toro something too." Now, facing Monroe's skepticism, Celeste clung to her fabricated story. "You're mighty lucky," the sheriff said finally. "Most taken by Toro's band don't live to tell about it." Mayor Hawkins, standing by the window, turned to her. "The cavalry arrived yesterday. Colonel Harrison's already planning a campaign to drive the Apache from these canyons for good." Celeste's stomach twisted. "Is that necessary? If they've withdrawn?" "Necessary?" Hawkins' face reddened. "After what they did to the Williams family? After they nearly took you?" "But they didn't harm me," she pointed out softly. Monroe and Hawkins exchanged glances. "Miss Williams," the sheriff said carefully, "sometimes captives develop confused feelings about their captors. It's common. But don't mistake an Apache's momentary mercy for kindness." Celeste knew better than to argue further. She hadn't been a captive, she'd been protected, and something in Toro's eyes when he'd spoken of teaching all children had stirred something unexpected within her. The schoolhouse had been closed during her absence. Reopening it proved harder than Celeste anticipated. Parents were reluctant to send their children with Apache devils supposedly lurking nearby. "They're scared," explained Martha Bennett, the general store owner's wife who had befriended Celeste. "The attack during the town meeting killed 2 men. Everyone's on edge." Celeste persisted, visiting families personally, assuring them of increased patrols by both the sheriff and the newly arrived cavalry. Slowly the children returned. Colonel Everett Harrison visited her classroom a week after her return. Tall and imposing in his blue uniform, He watched the children recite their lessons with a benign smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Impressive work, Miss Williams," he said afterward, "bringing civilization to the frontier." "Thank you, Colonel. I understand you had a close encounter with the Apache." Celeste tensed. "I was fortunate." "Indeed." Harrison stroked his mustache. "I'd like to hear more about your experience. Perhaps over dinner?" Something about his manner, too smooth, too practiced, set Celeste on edge. Still, refusing might raise suspicions. "That would be acceptable, Colonel." Dinner was served at the small hotel where Harrison had established his temporary headquarters. The colonel proved to be well-educated and charming, but beneath his polished exterior, Celeste sensed a cold calculation. "The Apache problem requires a permanent solution," he explained, cutting his steak precisely. "These lands hold mineral wealth, farming potential. Progress can't be held hostage by savages." "They were here first," Celeste ventured. "Surely there's room enough." Harrison's smile tightened. "My dear Miss Williams, that thinking is precisely why the Indian problem persists. Sentimentality has no place on the frontier. Is it sentimental to value human life? An Apache is not fully human in the way we understand humanity." Harrison dabbed his lips with a napkin. "They lack our moral compass, our capacity for true civilization. Your experience proves this. Dragged into the wilderness, treated like an animal." Celeste bit her tongue, remembering Toro's gentle hands as he'd helped her over rocky terrain, the care with which he'd ensured she had water and food. "Now," Harrison continued, "you mentioned a camp. I'd like you to show my scouts its location." I was disoriented. I couldn't possibly find it again." The colonel's eyes hardened. "Miss Williams, cooperating with the United States Army is your duty as a citizen." "Of course," she said quickly. "I just don't believe I'd be helpful." Harrison studied her for a long moment. "I see. Well, we have other methods. My scouts have tracked their movements to a valley about 15 miles northwest. We move out tomorrow." Celeste's heart sank. An entire camp, women, children, elders, Toro's people. "Colonel, surely negotiation is pointless with savages who only understand force." Harrison's tone ended the discussion. "Now tell me about Boston. I attended Harvard myself years ago." The rest of the dinner passed in strained conversation. When Harrison escorted her back to her room, he paused at the door. "I hope you'll reconsider helping us, Miss Williams. Your reluctance might be misinterpreted." The threat was thinly veiled. "Good night, Colonel." Celeste couldn't sleep. The thought of cavalry descending on the Apache camp on Toro filled her with dread. She paced her small room, torn between loyalty to her own people and the debt she owed the man who had saved her. Finally, decision made, she dressed in her darkest clothes. The town was quiet as she slipped out, making her way to the livery stable. Old Sam, the night watchman, was fast asleep as she'd hoped. "Sorry," she whispered, taking a mare and leaving $2 silver in the man's coat pocket. Riding out of town was terrifying. Celeste had only the vaguest idea of direction, northwest toward the red mesa visible from town. The night was cool, stars scattered like diamond dust across the heavens. She urged the horse forward, praying she wasn't making a fatal mistake. After an hour, she realized she was hopelessly lost. The desert looked different at night, more threatening, more alien. Panic began to rise in her throat. A sound stopped her, the soft nickering of a horse that wasn't hers. She turned, heart pounding. A figure sat motionless atop a painted pony, silhouetted against the starlit sky. Even without seeing his face, she knew. "Toro?" He nudged his mount forward, materializing from shadows. His expression was unreadable. "White teacher, far from school." "I had to find you," she said urgently. "Colonel Harrison, the cavalry. They're coming tomorrow. They know where your camp is." For a long moment, Toro said nothing. Then, "Why you tell me this?" "Because you spared me. Because what they're planning isn't right." His eyes searched hers, looking for deception. Finding none, he nodded once. "Come. I should go back. Dawn brings soldiers. You alone, they think spy." He extended his hand. "Come." Celeste hesitated only briefly before taking his hand. He pulled her from her mount onto his pony, positioning her in front of him. His arms encircled her as he took the reins, his chest warm against her back. They rode in silence. the pony sure-footed even in darkness. Celeste was acutely aware of Toro's presence, his breath near her ear, the strength in his arms, the unfamiliar scent of sage and leather. Eventually they reached a narrow canyon, following its twisting path until it opened into a small valley. Fires burned low, illuminating teepees arranged in a circle. As they approached, figures emerged from shadows, hands on weapons. Toro spoke rapidly in his language. The tension eased, though suspicious eyes still followed Celeste as he helped her dismount. An elderly man approached, his face deeply lined, his long white hair braided with eagle feathers. He spoke to Toro in Apache, his gaze never leaving Celeste. "My grandfather, White Hawk," Toro explained. "Medicine man, chief of people." Celeste bowed her head respectfully. "Please tell him I come with warning. The soldiers know of this place." Toro translated. The old man's eyes widened, then narrowed. He responded at length. "He asks why white woman helps Apache." "Because it's right," she said simply. More words were exchanged, voices rising. Other warriors joined the discussion, some gesturing angrily toward Celeste. Finally, White Hawk raised his hand, silencing the others. He spoke directly to Toro, his tone commanding. Toro's jaw tightened. "We leave tonight. Break camp." He turned to Celeste. "You stay until morning, then return. But the soldiers will find empty camp." A hint of a smile touched his lips. Not first time Apache disappear. As the camp erupted into activity, Celeste stood awkwardly, unsure of her place. Women dismantled teepees with practiced efficiency. Children gathered belongings. Warriors prepared horses. Toro led her to a small fire at the edge of camp. "Rest here, safe. Thank you for believing me." He studied her face in the firelight. Toro knows truth in eyes. "Your eyes—" He paused, searching for words. "Your eyes like water in desert. Clear. Life-giving." The unexpected poetry of his words startled her. This man the townspeople called savage spoke with more genuine eloquence than Colonel Harrison with all his education. "I should never have come west," she said softly. "Everything I thought I knew seems wrong now. West changes all who come." Toro sat beside her. "Changes Apache too." "Your English, where did you learn it?" A shadow crossed his face. "Mission school, 4 years, before I ran away." "You were educated? Priests teach reading, writing. Teach Apache to be ashamed." His voice hardened. "Teach Apache to forget ancestors, cut hair, beat children who speak Apache words." Celeste's heart sank. "That's not education. That's cruelty. Your school different?" "I hope so." She met his gaze. "I believe knowledge should expand minds, not constrain them. All children deserve to learn, to grow in understanding." "Even Apache children?" The question hung between them, weighted with implications. "Yes," she said firmly. "All children." Something shifted in Toro's expression, a softening, a recognition. For a moment, they were not Apache and white, not enemies by birth, but simply two people finding unexpected common ground. The moment broke when a young warrior approached, speaking urgently to Toro. "I must help prepare," he told Celeste. "Stay by fire." Left alone, Celeste watched the camp's dismantling with fascination. Despite the urgency, there was no panic, only practiced efficiency. Within 2 hours, the teepees were down, belongings packed onto travois pulled by horses. Even the fires were carefully extinguished, leaving no trace. Toro returned as the first hint of dawn lightened the eastern sky. "Time for you to go. Where will your people go?" "Deep canyons. Places cavalry cannot follow." He helped her onto her horse. "Toro guide you part way." They rode in silence through the awakening desert. Colors returned to the world, the red gold of rock formations, the pale green of sage, the endless blue above. Eventually, they reached a rise overlooking the valley that led toward Red Canyon. "Town there," Toro pointed. 2 hours riding." Celeste hesitated. "Will I see you again?" His eyes met hers. "Not safe. I know. But—" She struggled to understand her own feelings. This man should terrify her. Yet something about his quiet dignity, his unexpected gentleness drew her. Toro must lead people to safety. He reached out, his fingers barely brushing her cheek. "But remembers teacher, with eyes like water. The touch sent warmth through her. Without thinking, she caught his hand, holding it against her face for a moment. "Be safe," she whispered. Something flared in his eyes. Surprise, then something deeper. He withdrew his hand slowly. "Go now. Tell no one you helped Apache." She nodded, understanding the danger for both of them. With a final look at the warrior who had twice saved her, Celeste turned her horse toward Red Canyon, her heart torn between two worlds that had never seemed further apart. Colonel Harrison's rage was fearsome to behold. The cavalry had returned empty-handed, finding only cold ashes where the Apache camp had been. "They were warned," he snarled during the emergency town meeting. "Someone betrayed us." His eyes scanned the gathered townspeople, lingering momentarily on Celeste. She kept her expression neutral, though her heart pounded. "I want every stranger, every drifter questioned," Harrison ordered Sheriff Monroe. "Check the Mexican workers at the ranches, too." "Yes, sir. And double the patrols, they can't have gone far." For 2 weeks, tension gripped Red Canyon. Cavalry soldiers patrolled the streets. Suspicious glances were cast at anyone who seemed different. Celeste threw herself into her teaching, trying to maintain normalcy for the children, but she felt the weight of her secret growing heavier. Martha Bennett noticed her distraction. "You're not sleeping well," she observed one afternoon as they arranged books in the schoolhouse. "Just busy with lessons," Celeste deflected. Martha wasn't fooled. "It's more than that. Ever since your ordeal, you've changed." "Wouldn't anyone?" "Perhaps." Martha hesitated. "There are rumors, Celeste." Celeste's hand stilled. "What rumors?" "That you weren't exactly a prisoner with the Apache, that you sympathize with them." "That's absurd." "Is it?" Martha's kind face showed concern, not accusation. "You've questioned the cavalry's methods openly. You suggested teaching native children at the last town council. Education benefits everyone." "I agree," Martha said quickly, "but others don't. Colonel Harrison has been asking questions about you, about your movements that night." Cold fear gripped Celeste. "What have you told him?" "Nothing, because I know nothing." Martha lowered her voice. "But Celeste, if there's something you're not saying, I'm your friend. You can trust me." Could she? Celeste wanted desperately to share the truth with someone, about Toro's kindness, about warning the camp, about the connection she'd felt with a man she should, by all accounts, fear. But Martha was married to a rancher who had lost cattle to Apache raids. Her loyalty ultimately was to her community. "There's nothing to tell," Celeste said firmly. "I escaped, that's all." Martha looked unconvinced, but nodded. "Just be careful. These are dangerous times for those who don't choose sides clearly." That evening, a knock at Celeste's door startled her. She opened it to find Colonel Harrison, immaculate in his uniform despite the late hour. "Miss Williams, may I come in?" Proper etiquette dictated she refuse. A single woman entertaining a man alone would cause scandal. But Harrison's tone made it clear this wasn't a social call. "I prefer to speak outside, Colonel." They stood on the small porch of her quarters behind the general store. Harrison's face was shadowed in the lantern light. "Your mare was missing the night before our raid," he said without preamble. "Returned the next morning, exhausted." Celeste's mouth went dry. "I didn't notice." "Old Sam at the stables did. Found $2 silver in his pocket and couldn't remember why." Harrison's eyes bored into hers. "Curious coincidence, wouldn't you say?" "Very." "Miss Williams, aiding the enemy is treason, punishable by hanging." The threat hung in the air between them. "Are you accusing me of something, Colonel?" "Not yet." His voice softened dangerously. "I admire you, Celeste. Your dedication to education, your bravery. I'd hate to see such qualities wasted because of misplaced sympathies." He stepped closer. Celeste resisted the urge to back away. "The Apache are finished in this territory," he continued. "Those who surrender will be relocated to reservations. Those who resist will be eliminated. That's progress." "Is it progress to destroy an entire people?" Harrison's smile was cold. "They destroyed themselves by refusing to adapt. But we needn't discuss politics." His hand touched her arm. "I could protect you, Celeste. A woman alone on the frontier faces many dangers. With the right husband, those dangers vanish." Understanding dawned. "Are you proposing, Colonel?" "Considering it. You're educated, attractive, somewhat unconventional, but I find that intriguing." Revulsion filled her, but Celeste maintained her composure. "I'm flattered, but I have no intention of marrying." His fingers tightened on her arm. "Consider carefully. As my wife, any indiscretions in your past would be forgotten. As a suspected Apache sympathizer, your future here is uncertain at best." Celeste pulled away. "Good night, Colonel." Harrison stepped back, his expression hardening. "Think about my offer, Miss Williams. I won't make it again." After he left, Celeste leaned against the door, trembling. The threat was clear. Marry him or face accusations of treason. Neither option was acceptable. She needed to leave Red Canyon. The decision to flee wasn't made lightly. Celeste loved teaching, loved watching young minds blossom, but Harrison's veiled threats, combined with the growing suspicion she sensed from townspeople, made her position untenable. She packed only essentials: clothing, her mother's locket, the journal she'd kept since arriving. The stagecoach would pass through in 2 days. She would be on it, headed back east, away from this land of harsh beauty and harsher choices. The afternoon before her planned departure, Celeste dismissed her students early. She wanted time alone in the schoolhouse, saying goodbye to the dream she was abandoning. Arranging books on shelves, she heard the door open behind her. "We're closed for the day," she said without turning. No response. She turned, irritation fading instantly. Toro stood in the doorway, looking both powerful and strangely vulnerable in the civilized setting. He wore buckskin leggings and a cotton shirt that must have been traded for or taken from a settler. His hair hung loose around his shoulders, a single eagle feather tied at his temple. "You shouldn't be here," she whispered, glancing anxiously toward the windows. "The soldiers are patrolling North Canyon." He closed the door. "Toro watches 3 days, knows their movements. Why take such a risk?" He moved toward her, his moccasins silent on the wooden floor. To see Teacher with eyes like water, her heart quickened. "Toro, white men come to your door at night," he said abruptly. "Man with yellow hair on face." She blinked in surprise. "You've been watching me?" "Protecting," he corrected. "Yellow hair man threatens?" "Colonel Harrison." "Yes, in a way." She hesitated. "He knows I warned your people. He wants me to marry him in exchange for his silence." Anger flashed in Toro's eyes. "You become his woman?" "Never," she said firmly. "I'm leaving Red Canyon. The stagecoach comes tomorrow." Something like pain crossed his features. "You go back to Big Eastern City?" "I have nowhere else." Toro looked around the schoolhouse, at the books, the slates, the colorful maps Celeste had painted. "My people hide in Canyon," he said slowly. "Children have no school, no books." His eyes met hers. "Need teacher." The implication stunned her. "You want me to teach Apache children?" "Apache. Mexican children from villages who trade with us. Children with all skin colors." His voice softened. "My grandfather says education is weapon stronger than rifle. Knowledge outlives war." "It would be dangerous," she whispered, though her heart leapt at the possibility. "Life always dangerous." He stepped closer. "But life without meaning is death already." Celeste's mind raced. To leave civilization entirely, to live among people considered enemies by her own kind, it was madness. Yet teaching children who had no other opportunity, bridging 2 worlds through education, wasn't that why she'd come west? "Your people would accept me." "Some no," he admitted, "but White Hawk says you have good spirit. Others follow his wisdom." "And you?" she asked softly. "Why do you want me to stay?" Toro's expression changed, vulnerability breaking through his warrior's composure. His hand reached out, hesitantly touching a strand of her hair that had escaped its pins. "Toro dreams of water eyes since first seeing Teacher." His voice dropped lower. "Dreams not proper for warrior chief." The confession sent heat rushing to Celeste's face. No man had ever spoken to her with such raw honesty. The proper response would be outrage, offense, immediate rejection. Instead, she found herself stepping closer. "What kind of dreams?" she whispered. His dark eyes held hers, intense and unguarded. "Dreams where Toro calls Teacher by her name, where Teacher belongs to no world but the one we make together." His hand moved from her hair to her cheek, touch light as a feather. "Dreams where Teacher says she is mine." The words hung between them, dangerous and exhilarating. Everything Celeste had been raised to believe told her to pull away. This man was from another world, another culture, an enemy of her people. Yet standing before him, feeling the gentle strength in his touch, she recognized a deeper truth. In Toro, she'd found someone who saw her completely, not as a proper Boston lady, not as a frontier curiosity, but as herself. "Say you're mine," he whispered, the words both question and plea. Celeste's hand rose to cover his against her cheek. "I can't belong to anyone," she said softly, "but I can choose where I belong." Hope flared in his eyes. "And your choice?" The schoolhouse door burst open before she could answer. Sheriff Monroe stood in the doorway, revolver drawn. "Step away from her, Apache," he growled. Toro moved with lightning speed, pushing Celeste behind him protectively. His hand went to his belt where a knife was sheathed. "No!" Celeste stepped between them. "Sheriff, please, he isn't harming me." Monroe's eyes widened with disbelief. "Miss Williams, move aside. I won't let you hurt him." "So it's true," Monroe said, his expression hardening. "Harrison was right about you." More footsteps sounded outside. The cavalry had been alerted. Toro spoke urgently in her ear. "Back door. Go to Split Rock past Creek. Wait there." "I won't leave you." "Go," he insisted. Toro follows. The sheriff advanced, gun steady. "Miss Williams, I'm placing you under arrest for aiding the enemy." With no time to argue, Celeste made her decision. She bolted for the back door as Toro launched himself at the sheriff. The sounds of struggle followed her as she ran into the gathering dusk, her heart pounding with terror, not for herself, but for the warrior who had risked everything to see her again. The Split Rock was a distinctive formation at the edge of a dry creek bed, about a mile from town. Celeste waited there as shadows lengthened, jumping at every sound. Had Toro escaped? Was he captured? Killed? The thought of him dying because of her was unbearable. An hour passed, then another. Night fell completely, stars emerging above the desert landscape. Still, she waited, hope fading with the light. A soft whistle, like a night bird but not quite natural, came from the darkness. Celeste held her breath. Toro emerged from shadows, moving stiffly. Blood darkened one sleeve of his shirt. "You're hurt," she gasped, rushing to him. "Small wound." He grimaced. "Sheriff fights well for white man." "Did you—" She couldn't finish the question. "Sheriff lives, sleeps now." His expression was grim. "But soldiers search, soon find trail." "This is my fault," Celeste said miserably. "If I hadn't hesitated, no regrets." Toro's hand cupped her face. "Choice still remains. Come with Toro now, or return to your world." "They'll hang me if I return," she said softly. "Colonel Harrison will see to it." "Then no choice." "There's always a choice." Celeste straightened her shoulders. "And I choose to go with you. Not because I must, but because I want to." For the first time, she saw Toro smile fully, a transformation that made him startlingly handsome, almost boyish, despite his warrior's bearing. "Then come. Long journey tonight." He led her to where two horses waited, hidden in a stand of junipers. Helping her mount, he winced as the movement strained his injured arm. "Let me see that wound first," she insisted. Reluctantly, he allowed her to examine his arm. The cut was long but not deep. Sheriff Monroe's knife had sliced rather than penetrated. Celeste tore a strip from her petticoat, binding the wound tightly. "This will have to do until we reach your people." Toro watched her work, his expression thoughtful. "Teacher good with healing too. Basic nursing was part of my education." She tied off the bandage. "Though I'm better with books than wounds." They rode through the night, following game trails and dry washes where hoofprints wouldn't show. Toro led them through narrow canyons and over rocky ridges where no cavalry patrol would venture. By dawn, they had traveled far from Red Canyon, deep into territory few white people had seen. "Rest here," Toro said, helping her dismount in a small box canyon. A spring bubbled from rock, creating a tiny oasis of greenery. Safe place? Apache sacred ground. Exhausted, Celeste sank onto a blanket he spread beneath a cottonwood tree. The events of the past day caught up with her planned departure, Toro's appearance, their flight, and the irrevocable choice she'd made. "What happens now?" she asked as he gathered wood for a small fire. 2 more days riding to reach people," He worked methodically despite his injury. Then you see if Apache life suits teacher from Boston. The question hung between them. Could she truly adapt to a life so different from everything she'd known? Would his people accept her, or would she forever be an outsider? And what of the growing feelings between them, feelings that crossed boundaries of culture, race, and everything she'd been taught was proper? As if reading her thoughts, Toro sat beside her. Teacher fears future. Wouldn't you in my place? He considered this. Fear is wisdom sometimes, but fear cannot rule heart. And what does your heart say? She asked softly. His eyes held hers. That Toro found treasure worth more than gold in white teacher, that spirits of ancestors guided our paths to cross. He touched her cheek gently. That Toro dreams of calling Celeste his woman, but only if she dreams same dream. The use of her name, the first time he'd spoken it, sent a shiver through her. I barely know you, she whispered. Know enough for first step on long road, he countered. The rest of knowing comes with walking together. His simple wisdom struck a chord within her. She'd spent her life following prescribed paths, proper education, proper behavior, proper goals. Yet here, with this man deemed a savage by her society, she felt more authentic than she ever had before. What would it mean, she asked carefully, to be your woman? Among Apache, man and woman choose each other freely. No ownership, like white man's marriage. Partnership. His eyes were serious. Man protects, provides. Woman nurtures, keeps wisdom. Both teach children, both decide together. And if I wanted to teach all children, not just our own? His smile returned. Then Toro helps build school in new camp. White Hawk already says education is future for Apache to survive. The thought filled her with unexpected joy. A school where Apache children could learn without being forced to abandon their culture, where knowledge could bridge worlds rather than destroy them. I think, she said slowly, that I would like to try walking that road with you. His hand found hers, strong fingers intertwining with hers. Then rest now. Journey continues when sun falls. As Celeste drifted into exhausted sleep, her head resting against Toro's shoulder, she realized she had never felt more free, more purposeful, than in this moment of choosing a path that would scandalize everyone she had ever known. The Apache winter camp lay hidden in a deep canyon, where sheer rock walls provided shelter from harsh winds and unwelcome eyes. When Celeste and Toro arrived after their arduous journey, they were met with mixed reactions: curiosity, suspicion, and in some cases outright hostility. White Hawk, however, welcomed Celeste with dignity. The elderly chief, speaking through Toro's translation, expressed gratitude for her warning about the cavalry raid. My grandfather says your spirit walked true path when many white spirits walk crooked, Toro explained. He gives blessing for you to stay, to teach children. Not everyone shared the chief's acceptance. Dancing Fox, a striking young woman who Celeste quickly realized had expected to become Toro's wife, watched her with undisguised contempt. Several warriors muttered among themselves, casting suspicious glances. They think I bring soldiers, Celeste whispered to Toro. Some fear change, he acknowledged. Toro must prove white teacher brings good medicine, not bad. The first weeks were difficult. Celeste struggled to adapt to Apache ways, sleeping in a teepee, eating unfamiliar foods, learning the intricate social protocols of the tribe. She worked tirelessly to earn trust, helping the women with daily tasks while beginning rudimentary English lessons for the children. Gradually, barriers began to fall. Her medical knowledge proved valuable when several children developed fevers during a cold snap. Her willingness to learn Apache words and customs demonstrated respect that slowly won over the skeptics. Through it all, Toro remained her steadfast supporter, though propriety kept them apart at night. He was, she discovered, not just a fearsome warrior, but a respected leader, thoughtful in counsel, fair in judgment, devoted to his people's welfare. Why do they call you Toro? She asked one evening as they sat by the central fire. You told me it means bull in Spanish, but you must have an Apache name. A shadow crossed his face. Birth name was Little Hawk, after grandfather. Spanish soldiers who killed my father called me El Toro when I charged them as boy. Name stayed. Reminder of day, I became warrior. His past emerged in pieces. The mission school where priests had beaten Apache language from his tongue, the return to his people as a teenager torn between worlds, the raids and counter-raids that had hardened him into the leader he'd become. Sometimes Toro not know where he belongs, he admitted. Too Apache for white world, too white-educated for some Apache. I understand that feeling, Celeste said softly. Their shared experience of living between worlds deepened their connection. During the day they worked separately, Toro leading hunting parties or negotiating with Mexican traders, Celeste teaching children and assisting the women. But evenings were theirs, sitting together at the edge of camp, sharing stories, building understanding. One night, as they watched stars emerge above the canyon walls, Toro took her hand. Celeste, happy with Apache life, she considered honestly. Parts are hard. I miss books, certain comforts, but I've never felt more purposeful. She squeezed his hand, or more alive. His eyes, reflecting starlight, studied her face. Tomorrow is moon of new leaves, time when Apache choose partners for life, if spirits agree. Her heart quickened. Is that a proposal, Chief Toro? Apache way is not like white church marriage, he explained. Man asks, woman decides. If yes, simple ceremony. Two walk together under stars, make promises only spirits hear. And if the woman says yes, what then? Then man builds new teepee. Couple lives as one. Shares all days to come. Celeste looked up at the vast sky, so much bigger than it had ever seemed in Boston or even Red Canyon. In 3 months with the Apache, she had changed in ways she couldn't have imagined. Stronger physically, more confident, less constrained by artificial proprieties, and her feelings for Toro had deepened from fascination to profound respect, and finally, to love. A love unlike anything she'd been raised to expect. Ask me properly, she whispered. The way an Apache would ask. Toro's expression grew solemn. He took both her hands in his. Celeste, with eyes like desert water, he said, his voice low and musical. Toro asks if you will join paths with him, if you will teach his children wisdom of both worlds, if you will stand beside him in council and in battle, if you will share his blankets when moon rises and sun when it falls. His dark eyes held hers. Toro asks if you will say you are his, as he is yours until last breath leaves body. Tears welled in Celeste's eyes at the simple poetry of his words, more beautiful than any formal proposal she might have received in Boston. Yes, she whispered, I am yours, as you are mine. He reached into a pouch at his belt, withdrawing something that gleamed in the starlight, a silver bracelet set with turquoise stones. Traded with Navajo for this, he explained, slipping it onto her wrist. Apache give no rings like white people. Bracelet shows woman is cherished, respected. The weight of the silver felt right against her skin, a tangible symbol of her new life, her new identity. Tomorrow, he said, we tell Whitehawk. If he approves, ceremony at next full moon. Whitehawk not only approved but insisted on presiding over the ceremony himself, an honor that clearly moved Toro deeply. The old chief had grown fond of Celeste, especially after she helped his arthritic hands with a salve of willow bark and bear fat. Not everyone shared his enthusiasm. Dancing Fox made her displeasure known, refusing to participate in the women's preparations. A few of the older warriors grumbled about diluting Apache blood, but most of the tribe accepted Toro's choice, respecting both his leadership and Celeste's demonstrated commitment to their welfare. The ceremony took place under a full moon that bathed the canyon in silver light. Celeste wore a dress of soft deerskin that the women had made for her, decorated with intricate beadwork. Her hair hung loose down her back, adorned with a single eagle feather, a gift from Whitehawk symbolizing wisdom. Toro waited for her in the ceremonial circle, magnificent in leggings and a chest plate of polished bone. His hair was braided with red cloth, the color of strength. Whitehawk spoke first in Apache, then asked Toro to translate his blessing. 2 rivers from different mountains join to make one stronger river. 2 souls from different worlds join to make one stronger spirit. The old chief sees wisdom in this union. The ancestors approve, the future becomes possible. Following tradition, Toro and Celeste walked together to the edge of camp, where they would exchange private vows beneath the stars. As they left the circle, the tribe began a celebration that would continue through the night. Drums, singing, feasting on a successful hunt. Alone at last on a high ledge overlooking the moonlit desert, Toro took Celeste's hands. Now we speak truth to each other, he said softly, words that bind more strongly than any ceremony. Celeste's heart overflowed with emotion. 3 months ago, she had been a proper Boston schoolteacher, venturing west with naive idealism. Now she stood under an Arizona moon, binding her life to a man her society called enemy. Yet never had she felt more certain of any decision. "I promise to walk beside you through all seasons," she began, the words coming from her heart rather than any tradition. "To learn your ways while sharing mine, to honor your people as my own, to face whatever dangers come with courage." Her voice softened. "And to love you, Toro, with everything I am, mind, body, and spirit, until death and beyond." His eyes shone with unexpected moisture. "Celeste," he said, his voice rough with emotion, "I promise to protect you, but never cage you, to listen to your wisdom and share my strength, to honor the courage that brought you to my world, to build a life where neither of us must forget who we are to become who we can be together." He touched her cheek gently. "And to love you as the desert loves rain, completely, desperately, eternally." Their lips met in a kiss that sealed their vows, tentative at first, then deepening with the passion they had held in check for so long. When they finally parted, breathless, Toro rested his forehead against hers. "Now, you are truly mine," he whispered. "And you are mine," she answered. That night, in the new teepee the tribe had helped prepare, they discovered each other fully at last, two worlds merging, differences celebrated rather than erased, a union that defied everything society said was impossible. Spring blossomed into summer. Celeste's school grew from a few hesitant students to nearly 30 children, Apache, Mexican, even 2 half-white children from a nearby trading post. With Toro's help, she created a curriculum that honored Apache traditions while teaching reading, mathematics, and natural sciences. Whitehawk often sat at the back of the open-air classroom, nodding approval as his grandchildren learned to navigate both worlds. "My grandfather says you bring strong medicine," Toro told her one evening as they watched the sunset from their favorite ledge. "Medicine of mind that may help Apache survive when rifles cannot." Celeste leaned against his shoulder, content in a way she'd never imagined possible. "And what does my husband say?" His arm tightened around her. "That Toro is richest man in all territories, with treasure no gold can buy." Their happiness seemed complete until the day the scouts brought warning. Cavalry soldiers were moving through the canyons, led by Mexican trackers skilled in finding hidden paths. "Harrison," Celeste whispered when Toro brought the news. He never stopped searching. The tribal council gathered immediately. Options were few: stay and fight, risking annihilation, flee deeper into the mountains, abandoning their carefully cultivated gardens and hunting grounds, or split up, making capture more difficult but weakening their collective strength. Whitehawk, whose health had been failing, spoke at length. When he finished, the council fell silent. "My grandfather says we cannot run forever," Toro translated for Celeste. "Territory shrinks. Game grows scarce. Apache must find new way or vanish like morning mist." "What way?" she asked. Toro's expression was troubled. "Treaty, reservation. If terms protect some Apache lands, some freedom." The idea was revolutionary and deeply controversial. Half the warriors stormed from the council in protest. Even those who remained argued fiercely. In their teepee that night, Toro confided his struggle. "Warrior in me wants to fight until last breath. Leader in me sees dying people if we continue." His eyes sought hers in the dim light. What would teacher with white knowledge advise? Celeste chose her words carefully. "The government won't stop. There will always be more soldiers, more settlers." She took his hand. "But surrender means death of spirit. Perhaps there's a middle path. Negotiation from strength with terms that preserve dignity and some freedom. Harrison will not negotiate with Apache." "No," she agreed. "But there are others with authority. Indian agents, territorial governors. If Whitehawk and other chiefs united, requested formal talks." Hope flickered in Toro's eyes. "You would help arrange this?" "I would try," she hesitated. "But Toro, I would be risking both our lives. If I approach the authorities, I'll be arrested as a deserter at best, a traitor at worst. And if we do nothing, more die." He stroked her cheek. "This is why spirits brought Boston teacher to Apache warrior. to build bridge where none existed. After days of tense discussion, a plan emerged. Celeste would approach James Monroe, not Colonel Harrison, with a proposal for peace talks. The sheriff, though prejudiced, had shown fairness in the past. He might listen where others wouldn't. "I should go alone," Celeste insisted during the final council. "If Toro is seen, they'll shoot first and ask questions never." "No." Toro's tone brooked no argument. Husband and wife faced danger together. In the end, they compromised. Toro would accompany her to the outskirts of Red Canyon, then wait while she approached Monroe alone. If she didn't return by nightfall, he would know the mission had failed, and what that likely meant for her fate. The journey was tense, every sound potentially a cavalry patrol. They traveled at night, rested hidden during daylight. Finally, they reached the ridge overlooking Red Canyon. The town had grown in the 6 months since Celeste's departure. New buildings lined the main street. A proper church steeple rose near the center. "Remember," Toro said as they prepared to part, "if danger comes, forget mission. Run to meeting place. Toro waits until moon sets, then comes for you." "I'll be careful." She touched his face, memorizing every line. "Trust me." His kiss was fierce, almost desperate. Always. Celeste approached Red Canyon from the east, where the stagecoach road entered town. She wore a simple dress borrowed from a Mexican trading family, allied with the Apache. Less conspicuous than buckskins, though still far from the fashionable attire she'd once worn. The town seemed eerily unchanged, yet utterly different through her new perspective. The general store where she'd lived, the schoolhouse she'd established, the church where she'd attended services, all familiar, all now belonging to another life. She located the sheriff's office easily. Taking a deep breath, she pushed open the door. James Monroe looked up from his desk, expression shifting from irritation to shock. "Miss Williams?" He stood so abruptly his chair toppled backward. "Good heavens! Sheriff Monroe!" She remained by the door, alert for any sudden movements. "I've come to talk." His hand moved toward his gun belt. "Please," she said quickly. "I'm alone and unarmed. I come with a proposal that could end bloodshed." Monroe's weathered face revealed conflicting emotions, suspicion, curiosity, and something like relief. "Everyone thought you were dead," he said finally, "or worse." "I've been living with the Apache, willingly." His eyes narrowed. "With that warrior? The one who attacked me?" "With my husband," she corrected steadily. "Chief Toro." The sheriff exhaled slowly. "Husband. Well, that explains a lot." He righted his chair, gesturing for her to sit opposite him. "You're taking an almighty risk coming here, Miss Williams, or whatever you call yourself now. Colonel Harrison has standing orders to arrest you for treason. Is the colonel still in Red Canyon?" "No. Got reassigned to Fort Apache 3 months back. Still hunts your husband, with a passion that's almost personal." Relief flooded through her. Harrison's absence improved their chances significantly. "Sheriff, I've come on behalf of White Hawk, head chief of the Central Apache bands. He proposes peace talks." Monroe's eyebrows rose. "That's unexpected. The Apache aren't fools. They see what's happening across the territories. They're willing to negotiate for a reservation on part of their traditional lands, with guarantees of water rights, hunting privileges, and freedom from interference in their customs. Why come to me? I've no authority for such negotiations." "Because you're fair," Celeste said simply. "Because you could arrange a meeting with someone who does have authority, without it becoming an ambush." The sheriff studied her thoughtfully. "You've changed, Miss Williams, in many ways, and you truly believe in this arrangement you've made, living with the Apache, married to their war chief." "I believe in it enough to risk my life coming here," she answered. "I believe in a future where Apache children and white children might someday live without fearing each other." Monroe was silent for a long moment. Then he sighed heavily. "There's a new Indian agent in Tucson, reformer type. Talks about humane treatment and peaceful coexistence. Might be receptive to such a proposal." Hope surged within Celeste. "You'll help arrange a meeting?" "I'll consider it." He leaned forward. "But first, you need to understand your situation. Legally, you're a fugitive. Morally, according to most folks around here, you're a race traitor." His expression softened. "But personally, I think you're either the bravest or the craziest woman I've ever met." "Perhaps both," she smiled faintly. Wait here. Monroe stood. I need to think, and you need to stay out of sight until I decide what to do. He locked her in his office, which was both concerning and reassuring. She was neither free nor immediately arrested. Through the window, she watched the familiar rhythms of Red Canyon's afternoon, shoppers at the general store, children playing, men gathering at the saloon. A world she had once belonged to, now as foreign as Mars. Hours passed. Celeste fought against growing anxiety. If she didn't return by nightfall, Toro would worry, might even attempt a rescue that could prove fatal. Finally, the door unlocked. Sheriff Monroe entered with another man, older, distinguished, with kind eyes behind wire-rimmed spectacles. Miss Williams, this is Judge Franklin Prescott, circuit judge for the territory, and more importantly, brother-in-law to that Indian agent I mentioned. The judge studied her with open curiosity. Sheriff Monroe has told me your extraordinary story, young lady. I must say, in 30 years on the bench, I've never encountered anything quite like it. Is that good or bad, Your Honor? That depends on whether your Apache chief is sincere about peace talks. Prescott sat across from her. I've seen too many broken treaties, too many promises made only to gain time or advantage. White Hawk gives his word. So does Toro. The warrior who escaped custody, injured the sheriff, and allegedly kidnapped you. Prescott raised an eyebrow. He never kidnapped me, Celeste said firmly. I chose to go with him. As for the rest, there was no other way for him to escape with his life. The judge and sheriff exchanged glances. You understand, Prescott said carefully, that arranging such talks would put my own reputation at risk. If this were a trap, it isn't. I stake my life on it. That's precisely what you're doing. The judge sighed. Very well. I'll write to my brother-in-law tonight. A preliminary meeting could be arranged within a fortnight. Small groups only. The agent, myself, perhaps the sheriff here. On the Apache side, the chief, your husband, and yourself as translator. Relief flooded through Celeste. Thank you, Your Honor. Don't thank me yet. Prescott's expression was grave. Even if these talks succeed, and that's a significant if, your personal situation remains complicated. You've violated numerous laws and social conventions. I'm prepared to face the consequences. Are you? The judge studied her. Are you prepared never to return to white society? Because that's likely what this choice means. The question gave her pause, not because she doubted her decision, but because she realized she'd already made peace with its implications. My place is with my husband and his people, she said simply. If that means exile from my former world, so be it. Something like respect flickered in Prescott's eyes. Sheriff, I believe Miss Williams, forgive me, Mrs. Toro, she supplied. Though among the Apache, women keep their own identity. Mrs. Toro, then, I believe she should be allowed to return to her people with our proposal. Her presence here only increases risk to all parties. Monroe nodded reluctantly. I'll escort her to the edge of town after dark. There's one more thing, Celeste said. My husband is waiting nearby. He'll be worried if I don't return by nightfall. Your Apache is here? Monroe's hand moved instinctively toward his gun. Not in town. Watching from the ridge. She met his eyes steadily. He wouldn't let me come alone, Sheriff. Would you let your wife walk into danger unprotected? After a moment, Monroe's hand fell away from his weapon. No, he admitted. I suppose I wouldn't. As promised, the sheriff escorted Celeste out of town after sunset. They rode in silence until reaching the stand of cottonwoods marking the eastern boundary. This far enough? Monroe asked. Yes. Thank you. He hesitated. For what it's worth, I hope this works. Too many have died already. On both sides, she agreed softly. Be careful, Miss Williams. The path you've chosen... He shook his head. Just be careful. Celeste watched him ride back toward town before turning toward the ridge where Toro waited. Her heart was lighter than it had been in weeks. Perhaps, just perhaps, a bridge between worlds was possible after all. She had barely reached the first rocky outcropping when a shadow detached itself from larger shadows. Toro's arms encircled her, pulling her close with relief, palpable in every line of his body. You are safe, he murmured against her hair. Toro feared. I'm fine, she assured him, reaching up to touch his face. And I bring hope. The judge will arrange talks with the Indian agent. In the moonlight, she saw his expression transform, guarded optimism replacing anxiety. "How you did this?" he said wonderingly. "What no warrior could accomplish with strongest bow." "We did this," she corrected. "Together." They made camp in a sheltered ravine, too far from Red Canyon to risk returning to the Apache camp before dawn. Under a blanket of stars, Toro held Celeste close, their bodies fitting together with the familiar perfection they discovered in their months together. "If peace comes," he murmured against her neck, "what does Celeste wish for future?" She thought about Judge Prescott's warning, that she had likely closed the door on ever returning to white society. The realization brought no regret, only clarity. "I wish for our school to grow," she said softly, "for Apache children to learn the best of both worlds, so they can walk proudly in either. I wish for a home with you, children of our own someday." She turned in his arms to face him. "I wish for a world where no one has to choose between who they love and where they belong." Toro's hand cradled her face. "Big wishes. May take long time." "We have time," she smiled. "A lifetime. Together," he affirmed, his eyes reflecting starlight and a future neither could have imagined when first they met. "Together," Celeste echoed, sealing the promise with a kiss. Beneath the vast Arizona sky, Celeste Williams, teacher, wife, bridge between worlds, surrendered completely to the destiny she had chosen when she answered the question that had changed everything. "Say you're mine." And she had said, yes. The end. Dear listener, tonight we shared a story about courage. We watched a woman cross the desert to bring hope to children, and we watched her find love where no one expected it. But maybe, in a quiet way, this story is also about you. Because like Celeste, you've likely crossed your own deserts. You've stood strong when others doubted. You've chosen kindness when life gave you bitterness. And even in the silence of your nights, you've carried a heart full of memories, wisdom, and the quiet strength of someone who has lived and loved deeply. So tonight, as you rest your head, remember, you are cherished just as you are. May peace find you this evening. May your body rest, your soul feel safe, and your dreams be calm and healing. And may tomorrow greet you gently, with light in your heart and ease in your steps. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. With warmth and protection always, from all of us at Wild West Whispers team. If this story moved you, please take a moment to subscribe, like, comment, and share. Your support truly means the world to us and gives us the motivation to continue creating heartfelt stories filled with love, redemption, and powerful twists. At the end of this video, you'll see a suggestion for another emotional story from our channel. Click and be surprised by more unforgettable tales like this one.